The purpose of this meeting this morning is to present to you the Wilmington Community Advisory Council's annual report. I want to go back to just a little history as to how we got to where we are. Many of you know that the Center for Disease Control was asked by myself to come into the city of Wilmington when I saw that the volume of violence that was plaguing our children was to an epidemic proportion. I started in my legislative role trying to address the gun regulations, which I knew trying to conquer the gun regulations that the state controls was something bigger than I or anyone could do right now. They're having difficulty on the federal level. So I said, how about if we address the children, the fact that the children and their position before they pick up the gun. Knowing the nature of my babies, and I'm quite sure I'm saying our babies, because every one of you here in this room represent your organization whose passion is for our children, because we understand our children are our future. I have a personal history and involvement. My grandchildren's uncle was the youngest person to die from gun violence at the age of 14. That was my grandchildren's uncle. His brother also died of gun violence. My other children's grandfather, my other grandson's father went missing the same time Anne Marie Fahey went missing. And if you recall, that's been this kind of stop the violence movement, because the little boy that got shot in the barbershop who was 6 years old. Ironically, this is how the universe works. The little boy was 6 years old. His name was Damon. My grandson's father, who was missing, name was Damon, and he had been missing for 6 years. The target, as the streets say, and the street know more than we know, says that the person that was targeted was to meet with my grandson's father's family the next day to tell them what he knew about his missing. That was a sign that I needed to do something for my grandchildren. And I saw in the paper that the Center for Disease Control was called in for the epidemic proportion of suicides that was taking place down in Lower Delaware. I said, if they're doing it for suicide, and this is affecting our children here in the north in the form of homicide, would not the CDC come? Well, I guess I wasn't crazy. I compiled all the data, the many reports, and many of you know that we've done many, many reports on what to do for our children. Hope Commission, the Morton's report, the children's, we have numerous reports on shelves about what needs to be done to our children. I compiled all that information, and with the help of former Secretary Rita Landgraf, we sent that information with the support of Governor Markell and the support of all the federal delegation to the Center for Disease Control, and they heard our cry. Because we went at it as a mental health issue. I said our children are suffering from mental health issues because this is not the nature of our babies. This is not the nature of our babies to harm themselves and to harm others, especially those of African American descent. We have not gone against anyone else for our oppression, and then we're going to turn inwards. There had to be something that is affecting our children, and they heard me. The data proved that there was an issue, and they came in with full force to do an investigation of the epidemic of violence by gun by our young people. It took them over 15 months, and where is the report? Well, they came back with 3 recommendations, 3 findings. And one of the major findings of that work was to form a community advisory council on what to do with those findings. The details of that you can find in a report that's on our webpage, the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. You can get the first report, but I didn't want to take the time to go in that deep. I want to tell you the progress we've made, but I wanted to give you a little background history. So The report is titled Accelerated Youth Violence Prevention and Positive Youth Development in Wilmington. And one of the major recommendations was to form a community advisory council, which we did, would consist of about 38 different organizations across the spectrum of community individuals, faith-based individuals, government officials, and of course, community individuals as well as youth. So we did create the Community Advisory Council in 2016. And from the Advisory Council, we came up with 7 recommendations of how to implement these findings. I got so much to say, y'all. I'm trying to save a little bit of time, okay? Okay, can you go back to the brief history? So in 2013, we requested for CDC to come into the city. The CDC conducted its work from January 14th to June 2014. We presented the report to the state, and we were excited that the governor, the county exec, and the mayor all were very impressed and all bought into the implementation of the recommendations. And then the Department of Health and Social Services charged the CDC with a report follow-up. So a brief history of our work again is that we formed the CDC Community Advisory Council. We did extensive research and community engagement that led to a report called Call to Action, and that report was released in January 2017. And you can imagine having the extensive knowledge of the individuals such as yourself and members of the Community Advisory Council that had years and decades of history of working in the Delaware State system, working in the community, having all that collective thought coming together to come up with solutions. And it was the most powerful meetings that you could ever imagine, the same kind of energy we have in this room. And in 2017, the Advisory Council released our report of our recommendations of what we felt needed to be done with the findings. And so we had completed our role as a Community Advisory Council as requested from the CDC. So what was our next step? We all wanted to stay at the table to see this all come to fruition, and so the council revolved itself, and we coordinated our responsibility and shifted our focus. The shifting of our focus, we changed our name from the CDC Community Advisory Council to the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. And our purpose was, and recommendation, the purpose was to provide guidance and support and advocacy to the plan and implementation of the council's recommendations. And those 6 recommendations were to foster violence-free environments and promoting positive opportunities and connections to trusted adults for youth in Wilmington. Many of you might have remembered last summer, we ensured that there were safe environments for our young people by having 13 safe havens throughout the city. Between the city and the state, we funded community centers to stay open late on the weekends and on late nights so that our children would have safe places to go during the evenings and during the weekends. And we intervened with many youth and families at the first site of risk is another recommendation. Restore youth who have gone down the wrong path. Address policy issues that have unintendedly adverse consequences for our youth, which is the biggest thing of all. We can change and bring together programs, but we must change the policies that direct the services provided by young people. In our format, we saw that we would also provide oversight, stewardship, technical assistance, public messaging, and mostly important, addressing the policies that we provide services to our young people. This Wilmington Community Advisory Council were diligent. We came to meetings on a regular basis, and we worked to do the following things that we are proud of our progress to date. We served as a catalyst for action on multidisciplinary population health models for collective impact. The state and community organizations partner with the city in implementing many pilot programs and leveraging existing resources and seeking new funding to keep those programs that we know that are positive youth development programs for our young people. And through it all, we have seen significant accomplishments and are very proud of the state of Wilmington youth, but we also have see more opportunities for our youth and for us to implement our recommendations. I know everyone likes numbers, and because numbers and data is very important. This is some of the accomplishments we've been able to make as well. Connecting to a caring adult. The kids count of Delaware said 95% of our survey 8th graders reported how that if someone there that gives them a lot of support and encouragement, how that makes them feel. So I know the work that you all are doing are a lot of those different types of adults. The Safe Havens, which was one of our first pilot programs, resulted in 294, I was trying to get the whole world right, 2,944 youth participating in our extended hours in summer Safe Haven programs. Are there any organizations here that participate in our Safe Haven summer program? Again, we would like to thank you for your continued support in this endeavor. And we are doing the Safe Haven again this summer. We also know that one of the main things that our young people need from the report was gainful employment. They need change in their pocket. They need to be able to provide the basic things of necessities of life for themselves once they get to be a certain age. So we had employment opportunities for youth. The 450 youth were employed by the city's 2017 summer youth program, and this year it's up to 500 youth. They changed the direction of it, just being a summer youth program that is a career path program where the young people have, they would take them through workshops and try to help them develop what their career interests might be so that we can steer them now while they're young toward that direction of getting hands-on employment experience in organizations of interest so they can start right now forming their career path. So the twist of the summer program is going a little differently. Again, this is the collective work of the City of Wilmington, United Way, and other organizations, all of us coming together to address what the needs are for our young people. And the supporting service is not only for the young people, because we know it's not just for our young people, we have to assist the adults. The epidemic that we're talking about our children are suffering from is 3 generations thick. It's not just our young people, it's the parents and even almost to the grandparents. So the work that we have to do, yes, is focus on our young people, but we know that we have to go to the parent, to the family, and then to the community, and eventually our city will start begin to heal. We also trained educators. The individuals, those adults that interact with our young people, it's important that they understand exactly what our children are suffering from. The organizations that served as the Safe Havens extended care organizations, they were provided training. Not only was the executive directors of the organization provide trauma-informed care training, but the staff also was provided trauma-informed care training. And that's important because our children, when they are seen now as acting out, they're really having a traumatic episode because they have experienced some form of trauma in their homes by the abuse, seeing the violence in the street, being hungry, being homeless, through divorce, you name it. If you took the adverse childhood experience test as adults, and there was many adults in high positions took that test, and I would encourage you all to look it up, ACE, Adverse Childhood Experience test, and see how many of the adverse traumatic episodes you've experienced in your life, see what your number factor is, and multiply that by 3 or 4, because that's what our children are experiencing. And we know the brain science behind that is that when you experience that type of trauma, your brain does not, the connectors do not connect, and the children are not able, because they're in a traumatic state, to make cognitive decisions. And resulting in their, what we classified as misbehaving. So we needed our centers who are with our children to be knowledgeable of this brain science, so they know how to respond to our children and not just punitive discipline. I'm proud to say yesterday the City Council passed legislation where we asking the General Assembly and Department of Education to not allow the expulsion of kindergarten to second grade children. And we also asked that the curriculum of trauma-informed care be part of the curriculum for young educators in colleges. So they come out of the universities already knowledgeable of this trauma-informed care and how to react to inner city children. It's about the policies that we must change. And as you can see, we've already started training our educators here in Delaware. 4,300 Delaware educators were trained by the Compassionate School Learning Collaborative and Compassionate Connectors Partnership. Again, partners, individuals already doing great things here in the state of Delaware, city of Wilmington. And we, the Community Advisory Council, we don't provide services. What we have done is gone out into the community and found out who's already doing these things. And we're bringing them together in partnership to address the needs of our children, which is why we invited you here today. More progress on our recommendations. The interagency data sharing, which is one of the findings, was that the state's various departments, because of many federal mandates and state mandates and laws, do not share data across the various departments. So when you might have a child in school who is having difficulty, if we were able to put that child into a cross-reference database, we might see that that child's family is also suffering from homelessness, or that person's family child member has been abused because of they've gotten services from the children's department. But those not having all of that cross-referencing of the various services or the issue that child is experiencing across the board would give us a holistic picture of what that child is experiencing, and we would act accordingly. But what ends up happening is if the child is acting out in school, the child is suspended, expelled, the child is seen as not able to learn, an IE is written up, the child might be put on Ritalin, and really the child's hungry, has been abused, is homeless. These are babies. So that's where we're working very hard in getting the data sharing tool to be able to do the interagencies. But we also know that there are, because of the different departments are seeing the impact of this, there are memorandums of understanding that are being done, and with the help of the other support systems that you saw in recommendations and accomplishments we've been able to make with partnering with organizations such as yourself, a signature to say that you can release that information is also what's necessary so that we could get the files and you can get a holistic picture of what that child and my family might need. We're working on, oh, okay, you saw those other examples. Thank you, Alicia. Because we have many progress on our recommendations. With one that we're very proud of is the working with the Governor Carney's Family Service Cabinet Council. That was one of the CDC Community Advisory Council's recommendation that he enact that again, and Governor Carney heard us. And I want to let you all know publicly, Governor Carney has been a great champion of this work, even when he was a congressman. So he's down in his position as governor, has heard our cry, see our work, see the results of it, and is in implementing our recommendations. And that was with the Family Service Cabinet Council. And we're working diligently and collaborating with the cabinet. And those of you who don't know what the cabinet is, it's the heads of all of his departments, secretaries of all of his departments come together to see how does the state function in a collective, holistic mode of operation. And the exciting part about that, their mode of operation is to implement the recommendations of the CDC report. one of the major responsibilities and focus on the city of Wilmington is to implement our recommendations. So I want to thank my team again for that. I mentioned the Safe Haven programs and the after-school programs, and most importantly as well is the capacity building with community centers and youth service organizations. A lot of our grassroots organizations are the ones who have their hands in the pulse and the ear of what's happening in the community. And I see many of those grassroots organizations here, and I'm glad that we have you in the room as well, because those are the groups that are really doing the hands-on, touching, wiping the baby's nose, hearing the mothers cry work, more than some of the larger, most prominent organizations. But so we have to help those organizations with capacity and build the, don't do that. I love her. We have to help those organizations with capacity because they're the boots on the ground and they're the ones that we know that really touch and have the interest to the organization, the individuals who would get the signatures on the paper more than going into one of our larger organizations. So building capacity for those organizations is also, we're very, very proud of getting that done and more work to do in that area. I talked about the summer youth program, the expansion of our summer youth employment with 500 this year, and for this year for the city of Wilmington. And the next one, please, yeah. The early identification service referral for youth inside of our schools. Our goal is to make sure that there is someone in all the areas where our young people are interacting. Of course, our schools are one of those locations. So identifying the children early before they go through the pipeline and get too far into the wrong direction, and then being able to refer those young people to the right type of support services. And of course, having that one-stop service areas for the youth and for young adults. Where can they go if they need trouble, if they need assistance? We're proud of our community intervention team that's in the development of a community intervention team so that we have boots on the ground, individuals who have that kind of interaction relationship with the community. Hopefully they can go and intervene and have conversations with our young men and young women and to prevent any type of mishap coming down for them to, oh, wait a minute. I know, I'm going, I'm looking at the clock. You just don't know how much work we have done. And I'm trying to give you all and connect the dots of all the great work that this team has done. But there's so much more work to do. We're trying to turn a ship around that's been going in this direction for quite some time. And I said 3 generations of a community who's suffering from this. So everyone says, well, what is the Wilmington Community Advisory Council doing? Well, you might not see the immediate impact, but if I'm telling you those things that you see that are happening in the community, there's social workers in the libraries. You see here notices like that. That is due to the work of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. The safe havens is due to our work. The fact that policies are being put into place, that's due to our work. We have all the hospitals, St. Francis, Christiana Care, they're all at the table with us because they're traumatized from this when they see our young people coming in shot up with bullets. Yeah. And you can imagine how that affects the medical system. They are there 100%, what can we do? And then even with the community, which has got us to the point of the community partner support units. We have individuals out on the ground, out in the community, listening to what's, and you might not know who they are. You don't know who they are. They're just amongst the community, listening, hearing what people need, directing them. And again, that's a part of the work of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. I'd like to take a moment right now to thank someone who, I don't know how we would have got all this done. I'm trying not to get emotional. Again, this is passionate to me, y'all, so that's Dr. Gwen Aguilera. Dr. Gwen serves as our admin, and she is the most diligent soldier on this work. She keeps all of us together, 38 different organizations, and then crazy little me. She keeps all of us on post, makes sure that we do all the follow-up, comes up with the innovative, thank you, the innovative solutions. She tends the meetings that we all can't get to, brings back that information to all of us, directs us how to connect all the dots for our babies. This today, oh, excuse me, y'all. Even looking in this room, who responded to us. And I just want to, you don't know, every time Dr. Gwen and I have made a call, and I'm the champion because I would call and knock on your doors, and Penrose, y'all know, I knock on your door, and council members, you know how I would knock on the door for find the resources, ask the question, and make the demand, and bring back the resources to get the work done. When Dr. Gwen said we needed, we would make the call, but no one has told us no. So I know that what this work is going to make a big difference in the city of Wilmington. And not just the city of Wilmington, this is being watched, you know, across the country, because no one else has gotten everyone asks, how did you get the Center for Disease Control to deal with gun violence? I didn't talk about the gun. I didn't care about the gun. I want to know what's in the mind of our baby. What are we doing as adults? What kind of environment are we providing for our children that makes our babies feel comfortable to walk up to somebody and blow their head off and can walk away? That takes a heinous heart. That means somebody who's truly, truly hurting. So I guess it's my plea to, whenever I had to speak with we went through the Department of Justice, everyone, what can we do? And that's why we brought you here today, because all of you represent organizations that touch the lives of our children and the children's families. And I believe all of your missions of your organizations is that, to provide support for our children and their families. So we wanted you to come in and also join in this work and become a partner, because we can't do it by ourselves. It's going to take all of us, and it's all of our responsibilities. First of all, if we all professing to be who we say we are and do the work that we do, I know I won't get a no from this room. You know, so we have on your table our annual report. On our annual report, and please take one and read it. You'll see the great work we've done. And at this time, I want to give our co-chair an opportunity to present to you as well. So thank you for listening to my passion.
So I didn't want her to leave the podium without really having you understand that we got a lot of champions in this room. We got a lot of people who stand for the right things even when it's tough to do. And one of the things I want to say is to the elders in this room, thank you for being that example. But Hanifa has been that example consistently from day one when we were convened, even prior to being that central advocate to make sure that the CDC had heard our cry and saw this issue as a public health issue. And she championed it from day one. From day one. So she needs to get around in the floor. I also want to say, as we venture into this next part of our agenda, that we're going to talk about power. And the substance of power is the individual stepping forward again, not necessarily seeing themselves, but seeing the end in mind, which is changing lives of people. That's power. Power is not what I yield and wield, you know, in my own individual sphere of influence. It's where I'm creating the greatest possible change in the life of somebody else. That's how I see power. And so we're going to have that conversation, and some of you have power in your organization, some of you have power within your community, some of you have power that if we brought that power together, the change we could see in 19801, 19802, and 19805 would be remarkable. Many of you are also engaged in collaboratives and collectives already and doing great work. Well, imagine if we put that on a continuum and all the great work that's being done in the life of a young person, and we took the box and we widened the box and we said, if we all were brought together and we said, okay, I got this piece, we got this piece, you have this piece, how impactful we would be in the lives of young people. That's what you've seen with the work of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, is the connecting of the dot without worrying about where the resource is going to come from. So if it meant going and talking with the governor about establishing the Family Service Cabinet Council, that's what happened. If it meant being able to sit down and talk with DHSS and, going from one transition of one secretary to another and making sure that secretary was on board with the work that's being done, that was done. If it meant talking with the Children's Department and being able to engage them, that was done. If it meant looking at Department of Labor, looking at all the summer youth employment programs that were put together over time in fragmentation, focused only on giving a young person a job, not looking at a way in which to make sure that the experience was meaningful so that the young person could be on the pathway, that was done. It was about connecting the dots. It was about removing your ego and allowing us to see the end in mind, which is that young person in the center, and asking ourselves the question, how can we make sure that the things that we do are going to have impact on them? That's why you're in this room. You would not have heard that cry if you didn't feel that. So we want to say thank you. So as we get ready to enter into this conversation, I want you to take the shield off. I want you to take the barrier off. I want you to put the child in the center and ask the critical question, if we were to do something as an organization, as a person to the one in this room, what could we do in order to make sure that the recommendations that were put forth, very limited in scope, based on the collective thoughts of a lot of people, there may be others, but again, there are at least 6 of them right there, and I don't think anyone in this room would say fostering a violent-free environment for our young people would be one recommendation that you couldn't get around. Not one of you. Now I'm putting it out there as though I know you all, which I do. But the bottom line is this: let's have this engaged conversation today, and let's walk out as a unified power base for changing the lives of our kids, finding ways in which to leverage every dollar that comes in, every program that's implemented, to make sure that it's impacting that young person's family, that community as a whole. It's the community fabric we're trying to change. And the only way it changes is through people. So I look forward to the conversation, but I did want to make sure that we recognize the work that has been done today. Rita, thank you. Thank you. And that's a partner in crime. And the great thing about it, she took it with her to the University of Delaware.
Yeah.
So she's
a standing ovation.
Yes. So she took it to the University of Delaware. Now the University of Delaware is so ingrained in this work.
Yeah.
And it's not just, just a nice touch at the table. Policy briefs, looking at ways in which to connect the dots for health, making sure that it really is mattering to the work that we're doing as a collective. So saying that, again, we're getting ready to enter into this conversation. But we say we appreciate you. And it probably would be good if we could just get a sense as to who's in this room. Just have you all just stand up and get a sense as to who's in this room, just so that we can get a flavor for the power that exists.
You can do that.
Catherine Lindroth, for Summer Learning Collaborative.
I'm Lynn Corley. I am the Newcastle County Center Director for the Delaware Adolescent Program, DAP.
Charlotte Miller Lacey, Executive Director of I Am My Sister's Keeper.
Doris Griffin, Executive Director of DAD.
Rashima Dixon, City Council at Large.
Alicia Drew, a Brennan Fellow with the University of Delaware, and I work with the Wilmington Community Advisory Council.
Amanda Chapman, Chief of Staff, Community Partners Support Unit.
Pastor Sandra Ben, pastor of Praying Ground Community Church, president of the Northeast Civic Association, and founder of Safe United Neighborhoods, and vice president of the Neighborhood Planning Council.
Margaret Guy, Executive Director of Stop the Violence Prayer Chain Foundation.
Jill Rogers with Delaware Guidance Services.
Saad Solomon, Executive Director of the Piece by Piece Social Services Agency.
Julius Mullen, Chief Clinical Officer for Children and Families First, and Professor for Wilmington University. And co-CEO of our Impact Leadership Program.
Christopher Purnell, Development Director of PAL at Wilmington.
Darrell Green, Delaware Department of Education, member of the Wilmington Advisory Council.
Margaret Henry, State Senator. Soon to be retired.
J.J. Johnson, State Representative in the 16th District.
Yolanda McCoy, 6th District City Council.
Go ahead. Wanda Burgos Ricon, I'm the Youth Development Director at the Latin American Community Center.
And I'm the CEO of the Latin American Community Center, but I'm also with the Delaware Hispanic Commission. Good work.
What's your name?
I got other hats. Oh, Maria
Yeah. Ian Jahiti Smith, Director of the Youth Advocate Program.
I'm Rochelle Weibel, Executive Director of Catholic Charities.
Fritz Jones, Director of Program Operations at Catholic Charities.
Chandra Pitt, CEO of One Village Alliance, creator of Raising Kings and Girls Can Do Anything.
Marjorie Vera Aspira of Delaware and Las Americas Aspira Academy Charter School.
John Bates from Ministry of Caring.
Allison Wendell, Neighborhood House, Southbridge and Middletown, Delaware.
Next table.
Michelle Williams, Executive Director of Hilltop Lutheran Neighborhood Center.
Cynthia Pritchard, President and CEO of Philanthropy Delaware.
Rita Landgraf, UD Director for the Partnership for Healthy Communities.
Lisa Henry, Director of Community Health for the Division of Public Health.
Stephanie Stotts, CEO, YWCA Delaware.
Fran Livingston, I'm the Executive Director of Peter Spencer Family Life Foundation, and we do a Children's Defense Fund Freedom School. It's the only one in Delaware, and also an after-school program.
Captain Kevin with the Salvation Army in Wilmington.
Major Paul Kane, State Commander, Salvation Army.
Christy Lancelotti, Deputy County Health Administrator for the Division of Public Health.
Mike Carney, Development Director at Junior Achievement, and Director of the Human Ecology Foundation. Logan Herring, Kingswood Community Center, the Warehouse Project, and Riverside Renaissance Development Corporation.
Adam McDermott, Food Bank of Delaware.
Melissa Hopkins, Vice President for Sector Advancement at Delaware Alliance for Nonprofit Advancement.
Penrose Collins, the Castle County Council and the Wilmington Health Commission.
Good morning, Don Baker, Forum to Advance Minorities in Engineering, also known as FAME.
Good morning, everyone. Ugandi Jacobs, Executive Director of William Extension Community Center.
Good morning, Dina Melchior, Executive Director of Delaware Futures.
Carlton Lampkins, Board Chair for Communities and Schools of Delaware and retired educator.
Good morning, Mike Crummell, Director of the H. Fletcher Brown Boys and Girls Club.
Robert Marshall, State Senator.
I guess then I'll end it. You might have Women, Delaware Division of Public Health and member of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council.
Thank you all. So you can see we have in this room people and organizations in Wilmington engaging in reform. That's the power that we're talking about here for the city of Wilmington. And with that, I'd like to bring Alicia up to tell you a little bit more about the Power campaign that we hope that you all will become a part of.
This is really great because one of the taglines of the work that we've been doing through Power is connected, respected, and protected, and we're surely connected right now in this room. So I think it really is a testament of what we're trying to do, coming closer together and be these people and organizations in Wilmington engaging in reform. So my colleague Erin Hutt and I are just going to briefly talk about the work of the council. President Shabazz had mentioned earlier that the community is at the center of everything that we do. It's why we're here and why we continue the efforts that we're all striving for. And an initiative that came from the advisory council was how can we interact with community and engage them in the process. And when we say community, it's so broad, from the individuals who are living in our communities that are at most promise, it's the organizations that are serving our families, our universities, our funders, foundations, and our state legislators and government as well. So looking at this broad idea of how we're all coming together to address the relationships, how can we as individuals, organizations, and legislators really reform and really operate from this collective impact framework? How can we transform a culture of violence that condones or normalizes youth violence and gun violence, and really recreating that to the culture of peace that we want to see in all the great work that our community advocates work for every single day on our streets and what we do in our organizations. And then also a big theme that we talked about today is how are we looking at reforming the systems and structures that, whether it be unintentionally perpetuating disadvantages in communities, specifically communities, Black and brown communities, low-income communities. So really looking at how can we make those system-wide changes that are going to create the conditions where all of our children in Delaware and their families truly feel protected, connected, and respected. So the community engagement strategy of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council came from this idea of what's the power of all of us and this collective impact that we can take. So Erin Hutt from Community Partner Support Unit is going to talk a little bit about, for people who want to be involved in the work, what does that look like?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So one of the important parts for us to have everyone to come together, it was important that we were able to bring grassroots organizations in the room with national size organizations like the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, and bring the legislators in the room and ultimately bring in the people that we serve. So it was important that we're taking a holistic approach in order to provide services to our children, especially in Newcastle County with a primary focus of Wilmington. I'm just so excited because everybody's here, and it's so exciting because, like, I know a lot of people in the room, and the people I don't know, I'm going to meet you, and it's just so great because it's like a lot of organizations here that really, really care about our kids. It's not like a lot of fluff in the room, so I'm just excited because, you know, when people come in the room and you got people helping from all different spectrums, it's so important. But what Power does is kind of brings everybody together. So some of the perks that we're working on is being able to have breakfasts like this on a regular basis and consistently, so that the grassroots organizations are ultimately people that bring programs to LACC and Hilltop and Hicks and and Kingswood and all the other community centers. So we want to be able to have people in the room on a continuous basis and also provide trainings and different opportunities of workshops so that people are able to train their organizations up so that one day they're operating on the same levels. So it's important to us that we have all these great people in the room and that you guys are connected with Power so that we can make sure that our children always have a constant feeling of connection, protection, and respection. Is that all right? But we're all here, so some of the perks that we're working on, well, of course, we focus on the relationships and the culture and everything like that, but we have to think bigger than our culture of what we see as our children, because our children need a lot more, like Ms. Hanif, President, Madam President, said we need to make sure that our kids are protected on a continuous basis. So it's important for us all to connect because we're all serving the same kids. Everybody is serving the same children in this room. I don't care if you're over West Side or if you're over South Bridge or Riverside, we're all working together to make the environment for our children in the city of Wilmington a better environment. So Power is here to keep everyone connected. One of the perks is we'll be able to blast everyone's email, your events, upcoming events. I am a proud alumni of FAME, so I'm so excited you're here. And some other people, I'm Hilltop Tim, so Kingswood, so, and Margaret Rose, retirement, so, and Ty, sorry, everybody, Dr. Gwen, I'm so honored to work with you because you just teach me so much, but it's not about me, sorry. Power, we're doing leadership development, we're doing culture development so that everybody is getting the same information when it comes to trauma-informed care. Everybody's getting the same information the same way, and we're all able to give it out to our children and families to make sure that we're supporting them holistically and not operating in silos. Amen. Oh, and Kat. So we're gonna laugh.
And I think that's the beauty of what we're trying to talk about, this reform, to be in a space where we're smiling and laughing and enjoying each other and still really thinking about how can we address this very critical issue. So I think that we have to have that to keep this power rolling. And for people who want to engage with us as we move forward today, we encourage you to go to the Wilmington Community Advisory Council website. It's wilmcommunityadvisorycouncil.org on the slides and on your brochures. And then also follow us and engage with us on social media. It's at Power and Wilm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then I know there's quite a few people in the room who have reached out expressing interest in becoming official Power partners and looking at how we can collaborate on projects together. So as the summer months roll in, Aaron and I will be reaching out to folks. And we also encourage people who want to learn more, get on the website, see the information, and you can fill out a form online to express your interest in partnering with us. And we also have some printed out versions of the form, so we can look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you.
So on your table, you'll find the annual report, and you also find brochures are out front. So we hope that you all feel the energy of the power. We're not trying to create another group or anything. We're just trying to, as Dr. Gwen says, be the connecting tissue. You know, we're a body of people, a body of organization, we are a community, but we have, as you all know, and I think you all can agree to this, all been working in silos. One doesn't know what the other is doing, which means that means a loss of resources and connectivity, and that means there's a net that our children are falling in between. So we all come together and we connect in our own individual ways, then we will close the net and no child will fall through being and have a safe landing and feel protected, connected, and respected. So we hope that you will become a partner in power. We, the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, do not do any type of support service. We depend upon each one of you to keep doing what you're doing in your individual capacity, but we're just doing it together. We're just doing it together. That creates a mighty fist of power to fight against what's happening to our children. With your events, as the young ladies, aren't they two powerful young women? We are so proud. You know, they say the success of being successful is to surround yourself with people smarter than you. So you saw what I did, right? I got the brains. I had brains, including all of you, which is why we brought you all to the table, so that we know that I just can't believe that with all of this resources and intelligence and wherewithal and passion, that we're going to continue to allow our children to be in the condition that they are. Wilmington is on a move. It's growing. Brick and mortar is growing. But we have to rebuild the human stock, and our human stock are our children. Corporations can't grow, economics can't grow, if we don't have a good, safe place for our families to live and our children to grow and thrive. And that's the work of all of us, is to provide that support service. So I hope that you all will become partners and the power of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, that you would be proud to say and to, show on your work that you are a member of power. And just imagine when our children, because we're taking this to the children next, and have already taken it to the children, when they're looking for a safe haven, that they can see the sign of power. It's one of those. That's one of those power groups. That's one of those power events. That's one of those power activities. I can feel respected, protected, and connected going there. I know there's going to be an adult who has my best interests at heart. I know there's going to be an adult that I can tell really, really what somebody did to me, and I know that they're going to help me. That's the way you want children to react to you, and that's the energy and the collective work that we're trying to portray by this power movement, okay? Do I see power in the room? Do I see power in the room? All right, all right. With that, I'd like to open up if there's any questions or comments anyone would like to share, because we're all in this together, and I look forward to answering any questions and continuing our continuous work. But before we go there, I do want to let you know that the Wilmington Community Advisory Council meets every month, and we're a public open meeting. And that meeting is on the second Tuesday of every month at the Achievement Center at 3 p.m. We welcome you. We encourage you. We are begging you to come, because we need your minds, we need your work, we need to connect the dots with the great work that you're doing to make sure that we're closing this net that our babies are falling through. Any questions or comments from anyone?
As a matter of fact, we really... Second Tuesday of every month at 3 p.m. at the Achievement Center on Vander Avenue. You can always find that information on our website, the city's website, the state's website. We try to make sure it's out for everyone. So here's just your opportunity to engage in the dialogue. This is part of our meeting structure, making sure that we can get folks to talk through some of the things that you're currently working on. How does this connect to the work that you've seen up on the screen? How do we make sure that it stays connected in one form or another, whether it's through power or whether it's through other entities? But here's this opportunity to really have this dialogue, and we'd like to really hear from some of our leaders in our community, just what you've heard, about what you've heard, and about what you've seen, and the direction in which we're going. So please, we got about 20 minutes or so. Please, let's engage in that dialogue. And who wants to start? Very good. Very good.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, working with Alicia, Gwen, Ray Fitzgerald, and the team over at DHSS, we're creating a program called the Young Adult Resource Development Team, the YARD team. And effectively, what we're trying to do is address the services of the youth that are aging out of services for YRS, DSCYF, and DFS services, because what ends up happening is that we've identified that these kids come out of Ferris. If their sentence expires or if they age out, then they're just left with not real significant access to the system of resources. So in partnership with YAP, in partnership with Aquila of Delaware to provide the clinical mental health, behavioral health, and substance use disorder treatment. I do reentry. My primary focus is reentry. We're providing a platform for that transition to be coordinated. And I invite any agencies that have resources for youth programming to join in this initiative, because it's a resource development team. It's not an individual agency-led mission. It's just a resource development team so that we can provide that fabric of support for these kids. Young adults primarily. We're talking 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, right? So that primary group that's been lost, that we really can't access a variety of services for. So anybody that's interested in that, just feel free to reach out to Alicia, myself, Amanda, any of us here today, or anybody at DHSS or the Community Partner Support Unit with Erin and her team. Just let us know you want to be a part of the YARD initiative, and we'll just bring you right in, because it's, again, a collaborative, a resource development team that tries to put everybody on the same page so that we can work together to help these youngins that are aging out before we find them in Howard Young.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I'm not concerned on the platform to talk about the work we're doing.
And you only have 2
I'm gonna stand over here so I don't have my back end.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. But if there's question and answer, then. So, again, Logan Heron, Kingswood Community Center, again, leading a couple of different initiatives, one being our warehouse project, which is a collaboration of nonprofits coming together under one roof and one network to serve our teen population. We're looking to secure the old Prestige Academy building and convert that to our warehouse project. We have about 40 to 50 commitments from our partners. A lot of you in the room side, I'm still waiting on my commitment letter. I know you got big time lawyers, so get it approved, please. As a part of that project, we're partnering with the University of Delaware and Delmarva to house an electric bus pilot that will help transport and serve our teams that are going back and forth between our network and to get the teams to the warehouse. So we're really excited about that project. And that is just a proving ground for the bigger redevelopment project that we're working on in Riverside that would encompass 37 acres, 12 acres of Kingswood, 25 of the Wilmington Housing Authority to redevelop under the purpose-built communities model, which is a proven national model that comes out of Atlanta. They've done this in 18 neighborhoods. It's really hard to get to their network, and we're about 2 months away after we engage with the master developer. High quality mixed income housing, cradle to college pipeline, and health and wellness to support the community. So we're really excited about what we're doing, and we want you all to be a part of this. This is not a one and or, it's always and our mantra is the power of and. So if you have something to bring to the table, make sure you bring it. All right, thank you. Less than 2 minutes, right?
There was one screen that I think I didn't give enough priority to. Can you go to priorities for resource development? I just wanted to let you know that because of the individuals in the room, these are key areas where additional funding is likely needed over the next few years to keep the work going forward. We talked about the capacity building. That is monies needed to help to build out the various organizations, mainly the small grassroots organizations that I said are really touching the heart and spirits of the organization of our children and the families. I mean, they're almost like the first persons that those individuals in distress go to first. Those grassroots organizations where someone has taken a home and turned it into a place for a safe haven for a child, not the major community centers. The children, those in distress are not coming there. They're not coming to the bigger organizations. They're going to go to those small groups where, you know, someone just said, I got to do something. And we need to build the capacity of them because they're the ones who's going to get that trust and get those individuals that really need it first, and then come to us major and larger size organizations for the support resources. We have got to build them up, the grassroots organizations, and that takes money to help them build their capacity. Our youth employment, again, how do we expand on our youth employment? We did 500 children this summer. You know how many children we have in the city of Wilmington? 500 scratches the surface. So we need to, I remember back in my day, it was 2,000 to 3,000 of us that had summer jobs. That was just what you did in the summer. We have got to expand that. Plus, they're the future workforce. We have to start investing in that, you know, which, again, you'll hear from me later on talking about a youth master plan. Once we connect all the dots, my prominent goal is to have a youth master plan, which is a master plan from all the sectors of the city of Wilmington, government, community, faith-based, social services. We all have a collective plan of action of how we're going to raise our children. Many cities have done it. Wilmington has to get on the board, and so I'm saying it publicly on camera. Early identification, we have children in the pipeline. We know the children are, we have individuals who...
Don't forget education.
I'm going to get there.
No, you said faith-based.
Oh, faith-based. Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. You're right. Thank you. I should have said that first because education is. So early identification, well, and see, schools and centers is under early education. Because identify children early, and the schools is where we first place where our children go. We go from daycare to schools. And so we have to put in our school systems individuals and the support systems and the right type of programming for our children to be identified early when we see that they might be traumatized, that they might need support services. And so we have to expand on our educational system, and I advocate strongly for a voice for the city of Wilmington, have a say in the education of our children, because we don't right now. But we're working on how to make sure that we have a voice that's heard and have authoritative input into the education. Until then, we're going to work it the way we're working it, and I thank everybody who's advocated on the behalf of education. And then a one-stop support system for not only just the children, but the families. Where can someone go? I'm in distress. Where do I go? Where can I go to get that help? Well, no matter where you are, I might be the grandmother who has the children. Where do we go? We got to call 311, 211, 911, all these different places. We didn't have some place comprehensive where you can get, whether it's food, clothing, and shelter, medical support, one place. We need some funding for that. And then community intervention teams, individuals out on the street where people, and to stop to intervene before a traumatic issue happened. That's where we need funding resources. I'm saying this out loud because I have a room full of legislators, and I hope that they hear and see the value of this work on all three levels. I see city, county, and state legislators in this room. And one of the things, and Rita, you can attest to this, one of the biggest questions everybody asked me when I presented it from the very beginning is, where are we going to get the money from? Where do we get the money? I said, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars wrong, because if it was right, we wouldn't be in this condition. Yeah, do that. So we're just saying, let's review, and this was, you don't know how much I love Rita Langriff, because I mean, I didn't even have to explain it, I didn't have to sell it to me, it was right there. The monies that we're spending on support service, we just need to change our request for proposals and say we need evidence-based intervention type programs instead of treatment stop. Most of the money was going into treatment. You know, you have children that they couldn't get assistance until they did something or were already in crisis. I'm a mother. If I see my child going the wrong direction, you're going to tell me my child got to have an event before I can get help? Very wrong. So my argument to legislators were, let's switch the money to intervention and prevention, still treatment, because we got people like this still need treatment. That's where policy changes come in, my politicians, okay? And our next movement is working on policy change. So when you hear the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, and you will hear, because I know you all going to become partners of power, and you're going to hear it, we need your voice and to help support our advocacy when we advocate for the change of policy that is adversely affecting our children. If we don't, who will? I'll shut up now.
Madam President, this is actually a perfect segue, and I did want to take the opportunity because you mentioned all the folks who are in the room. One of the most critical issues beyond the violence and the mental health is education. And I will say this, we have been doing an extremely poor job and a disservice to our community, our children, and it's for this reason. Our children, especially children in these cities, they don't see themselves in the future. That's right. They do not see themselves in curriculum. I'm an example of that. As an African-American man who strived and who had great parents, you all know my parents, I never saw myself as a scientist, as an engineer, as anything other than an athlete, an orator, as Dr. King. Legislation, we need to look at how girls are rolled into curriculum and how they can see themselves in the future, the near future. This is a huge issue nationwide for girls, black and brown children, and certainly for their majority counterparts. Because if they don't think that a Latina girl can be anything other than a whatever, it's not a reality. And that's how they judge each other. So, Forum to Advance Minorities in Engineering, along with other partners, we have taken on what we call Stimulate Change, and we have focused primarily on curricula that show students themselves in the future, now. So I would say that that is something that we really need to talk about and change policy on how students see themselves every single day in school and out of school. Thank you.
Saying that, My Sister's Keeper is that organization that does that. Allow girls to see themselves in the future. We bring women such as yourself into the room every day to interact with these girls on a personal basis. They get to see other people. They look at us sometime and think that we just came like this, but we have issues that we had to work through. And we have people like you that were in our village to help us get through those things. And I tell the girls every day, I had a village from age 0 up until now, women that I go to, that are my go-to people to help me. And you need that. And we've lost that with our girls somewhere around the way. And they don't believe in us. And I Am My Sister's Keeper is there for these girls to help them get that belief again. And we need your help with that. Thank you.
We got time for about 2 more. Any other thoughts, comments, what you've heard?
Well, seeing none, again, I just would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out the time to come and hear about the great work that this mighty team of individuals, caring persons, experts, professionals, parents, to address the issue that's plaguing our future, which is our children. I look forward to each and every one of you becoming a member of POWER. We need you. I welcome you to come to our monthly meetings, again, the second Tuesday of every month at 3 p.m. at the Achievement Center on Vanderbilt Avenue. We're there from 3 to 5. And know that these groups of individuals have been coming to meetings for the past 2 years religiously to do this work. That's commitment. And that's what keeps driving us. And I'm looking forward to you coming in and bringing your work in and supporting in any way that you can. I know we all are busy. Even just becoming a member of POWER strengthens, it closes the gap of the web that our children will fall through. To know that we got a partner organization to provide the services you have, that's a help. That's a help, because when we do our intervention teams, they know that they can call upon a partner organization to provide the support. So again, thank you very much. You can visit us on our website, WCAC.org. If you get back to your office and think of any comments, suggestions, recommendations, where we can get resources to do these many things, become an advocate. We look forward to your response any way possible. And again, thank you very much for listening and participating. And everyone go out and have a powerful day.